Hello all, welcome to my channel. If today's your first time here, welcome. And if you're a returning visitor, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at Inter-VLAN routing, otherwise known as routing on a stick. And the topology, which is off to the left here, which, actually has the IP addresses and VLANs that we're going to use. I've actually integrated that in packet traces so we could have the topology to look at, but we're going to be configuring these devices here, right? So we're going to go through, we're going to configure switch 1, switch 2, we're going to assign IP addresses to PC1, PC2, and we're going to configure gigabit 00 sub-interfaces for routing, for inter-VLAN routing. All right, so let's take you on the journey. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you do have any questions, you could always feel free to leave them in the comments section. And yeah, here we go. So let's start with switch 1. So before we start doing any configs, let's just hit enter here, and we're going to type enable and do show VLAN brief. Showing VLAN brief, what it's going to do is it's going to show us all the VLANs that are currently on our switch and the ports association to VLAN. And as you can see here, all the ports are a part of VLAN 1. So I started configuring this before, and I did left VLAN 10 up and running, right? So what we'll do is, let's just remove it. We'll go config T. We'll go no VLAN 10 to remove the VLAN. We'll do no VLAN 20, remove VLAN 20, Control Z, and do show VLAN brief. And that removes it. So again, right now, all we're seeing are just our default VLANs. And let me pull the screen a little bit wider. And we could see here the only thing that's here are the default VLANs, and all the ports are a part of the default VLAN. So VLAN 1000 to 1005, I'm sorry, 1002 to 1005 are created by default, part of the operating system. We cannot delete them, we cannot modify them. The same goes for VLAN 1, we cannot delete it. And if you see, all the ports that are on the switch are a part of VLAN 1. So let's go ahead and first thing we're going to do, let's name the switch. To name the switch, we need to go in global config mode, that's config T, and we type host name switch 1. That's what we name it. So notice the default name is switch, it's changed from switch, and it's now switch 1. Right, we're going to create the VLAN, we're going to create VLAN 10, and we're going to create VLAN 20, and exit, we could do Control Z. Take us back to the privileged mode, we could do show VLAN brief, and it shows us the VLAN that we have here. Notice by default, it just creates a VLAN name for you. You could actually have created a custom VLAN name if you wanted. So let's go back in and do that. Config T, VLAN 10, and we're going to say name. Let's call that student, and exit out of here. Let's go VLAN 20, name faculty. Right. And if we go show VLAN brief, now we see VLAN 10 is called student, VLAN 20 is called faculty. So how do you get good at this, guys? You got to practice, practice, practice. And when you think you know exactly what you're doing, just try to practice without leveraging the video, right? And perfect practice makes perfect. That's what I like to tell my students. All right, so we've created VLAN 10, we've created VLAN 20, and that's on switch 1. How do we save it? We say copy running config, right? Copy running config to start up, and now it's saved. So if we needed to restart our switch when it comes back, we'll have all the configs on the switch. Now, let's close this out. Let's go over to switch number 2. And switch number 2, in this case, we have PC1 that's plugged into switch 2. We have PC2 that's plugged into switch 2, PC1 that's plugged into switch 1. And on PC2 is in VLAN 20, and it's plugged into switch 2. So what we need to do is go into switch 2 over here, We're in the user exec mode. We type enable, gets us into privilege mode, config T, host name, switch to, and we're going to create VLAN 20. And we're going to say name faculty. Right, so now if we go take a look, Control Z, how do we take a look at this? Anyone remembers? Dun, dun, dun. Show VLAN brief. Right, so we see that it's here, VLAN 20. You know, all the interfaces are here, and we see that it's just the default VLAN and the VLAN that we've created. Now, notice there are no ports associated with VLAN 20. All the ports are associated with VLAN 1 by default. Okay, so again, to save, we do copy, run, start, hit enter, or we could have just typed WR. WR is just a short way of just saving it. Right, so the PCs. The PCs are, let me just see here, let me just get my pointy tool and my pencil. All right, so the PCs are plugged, PC2 is plugged into switch 2, PC1 is plugged into switch 1. It's plugged into what we call an access port, right? So in this case, it's on the topology, it's saying that it's plugged into fast Ethernet 606. On switch 2, it's plugged into fast Ethernet 18, right? An access port is a port that's configured to carry traffic for a single VLAN. A trunk port is a port that's configured to carry traffic for multiple VLANs. So the port that is connected to the switches, that the ports that are used to connect both switches, will need to be a trunk port because it will need to carry traffic for multiple VLAN. So again, switch to switch, it will be a trunk port, and from the switch to the router, it will also be a trunk port because it will be carrying traffic for VLAN 20 to do the routing up here, and it will be carrying traffic for VLAN 10 also. All right, so that's it here. Let's get over here and take a look. So let me do show VLAN brief. That's on switch number 2, and I see the VLAN that we just created. So now in our topology, I guess I did it a little bit different. You know what? Let me just delete it and just connect it just like this is connected. So to delete it here, I need to go up here. Let me delete it from this PC, and I'll delete it from this PC here. So now I'm going to go point. I'm going to connect PC1. PC1 should be connected to fast Ethernet 6 as the diagram, you know, as it has it there. And PC2 should be connected to fast Ethernet 18. All right, so now we can refer to it just like it's showing up in the topology, right? So here on switch 2, we will go into fast Ethernet 18. Again, we go to config T, internet FA0/18, and we're going to say this is supposed to be in VLAN 20. So we say switch port, access, VLAN, and that's 20, right? So it's now in VLAN 20, and we're good. And one other thing, fast Ethernet 1 is connected to fast Ethernet 1. On our topology, we're using a different number. Let me just change it to 1, just so it aligns with the diagram. It doesn't make a difference, guys, but I just wanted to align it with the diagram that since you're learners, you know, you could easily refer to the topology over here and the and what we're doing. So it is saying that fast Ethernet 1 and fast Ethernet 1 and switch 2 and switch 1 should be connected, and that should be a trunk port. How do we make that into a trunk port? We could go here, privilege mode, and do show interface trunk. There are no trunk ports here right now, right? So we could do show interface fast Ethernet 01 switch port. So now we do those show commands here. We're saying right now it's configured as dynamic auto, right? And it is operating as a static access port, right? Trunking is not enabled. So let's go into the interface. We go into interface, FA0/1. And once you're in FA0/1, we'll say switch port mode trunk. Now we just convert that to a trunk port, and we could do show interface trunk. And we're saying, hey, it says, hey, trunking is on. So now fast Ethernet 01 is now a trunk port, as we could see from that, right? And look here, it says encapsulation.1Q. It says on encapsulation.1Q. Now, let's go over to our switch number 1. I want to show you guys something here. So if I go to switch number 1, let me put this here so it could come up. So I'm in switch number 1 right now. Remember, right here. And I go show interface trunk. Right, to saying, hey, switch number 1 is also trunking, but notice the difference. This is saying on switch number 2, it is 802.1Q, and this is N-802.1Q. This is saying that, let me get my marquee here. What this is saying to us here, guys, is that on this switch, it's negotiated. On this switch, it's actually explicitly enabled. It is explicitly enabled because previously we went in and we typed what? Switch port mode trunk. On switch 1, we did not do that yet. What it's in is it's in dynamic auto. So in dynamic auto, what it's saying is if someone initiates, right, that trunk request, I'm going to form trunking. But if no one initiate that trunk request, I'm going to stay in access port, right? So that's what's happening right there. Let me go ahead and clear here, and let's go back over here and look. So now if I go into the interface FA 0/1, and I say switch port mode trunk. The moment I do that, and let me speed up the refresh here. You could just click on fast forward. If I go there and do that now, do the same thing, which is show interface trunk. Look at the difference. It no longer says auto, as it was saying up here previously. Notice here it was saying auto and negotiated 802.1Q. Now it's saying that it's on and it's not negotiated, right? Because we explicitly identified to be a trunk port. So what have we done so far? We have actually configured fast Ethernet 1 and switch 2 and fast Ethernet 1 and switch 1 to be trunk ports. We have created VLAN 20 on switch 2. We have associated fast Ethernet 018 on switch 2 for PC2 to be in VLAN 20. Now on switch 1, let's continue our work here. We're going to, on switch 1 here, let's do show VLAN brief. Right, we know that we have created our VLANs here, but look, we still are not associating it with any port. So now let's associate port 6, right? PC1 is plugged into port 6, and port 6 need to be in VLAN 10. If we look at the topology diagram over here, right here. So we need to put port 6 into VLAN 10. How do we do that? We're going to do it like so. Go into global config, interface fast Ethernet 06. Right, we're going to say switch port access VLAN 10. And from here, we could do Control Z. We could do show VLAN brief and hit enter. And now we could see by this that we have moved fast Ethernet 6 to be a part of VLAN 10. The beautiful thing about video and recording, if I'm going a little bit fast, what you could do, you could slow it down, rewind, go back and watch me and work through it until you get it, right? So here we are, right? The other thing that we need to do now, let us configure the router. So the router is connected to gigabit 02 on switch 1. In my topology, it's 0, 2 on switch 1. Over here, it's saying port 5, but it really doesn't make a difference. So let me go config T. I'm going to go in gigabit 0, 2, right, on the switch. And on the switch, what I'm going to say, switch port mode is trunk, right? Again, why do we need for it to be a trunk port? If you look here, guys, on router 1 will be creating sub-interfaces for VLAN 10 and another sub-interface for VLAN 20. So this physical interface will be routing for VLAN 10 and routing for VLAN 20. So this port, which is on this topology here, an OR topology, it is gigabit 02. It will be carrying traffic for VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So we have to be able to tag it. That's why we're configuring this to be a trunk port. Remember, by definition, a trunk port is a port that is configured to carry traffic for multiple VLAN. An access port is a port that is configured to carry traffic for a single VLAN. All right. So with that said, we have just configured gigabit 02. I'm sorry, gigabit 02 on the switch port. So I screwed up here. I configured gigabit 01, but it's gigabit 02 on the switch port needs to be configured as a trunk. So you guys are probably seeing it and saying, hey, oh no, you were doing it wrong. You're configuring gigabit 01 when it's really gigabit 02. So let's just go in gigabit 0/2. Let me turn off this. I just got this new application that I'm trying to use here, so I'm not as proficient as I should be on the screen sharing app. So it's interface gigabit 0/2. I'm going to say switch port mode is trunk. And there we go. Notice it still didn't come on yet. The reason it still didn't come on, again, because the interface on the router is not activated yet. All right, so let's go up to the router now. So on the router, we're going to go into router. I'm going to clear this off. Let me go over here. All right, on the router, I go to the CLI, and it's saying, hey, Norwin, I've not been configured yet. I need for you to configure me, sir, for me to be a part of the topology. So I say, I don't want to do it automatically. So I'm typing enable, config T, I go host name. I'm going to say router 1. So notice it changed it from the default name router to router 1. And the interface that we're working with is gigabit 00. So interface gigabit 0/0. I do no shut. And now it's online. Right. Now, let me get out of here. I'm going to create gigabit 0/0. Look, I could create dot, and then I do, then I would do the VLAN number. So in this case, I want this to route for VLAN 10. So I'm just going to say, hey, let's just name it gigabit 00.10, right? And in here, I'm going to say encapsulation .1Q10. So pretty much I'm saying here, any traffic that's coming in from the trunk port on switch 1, and it has a layer 2 label of 10, this sub interface should route for it, right? So in this case, the default gateway is going to be 192.168.10.1, and it's 255.255.255.0, and we're good there, all right? And then I exit out of here and I go interface gigabit 0/0.20, and the same thing is going to be done here. How do I know what it should be? It's telling me right here, the topology, that, hey, Norwin, this needs to be .1. So it's 20.1 and 10.1. So I just created the sub interface that's going to be routing for VLAN 20. And here I will do encapsulation .1Q 20. And I'm going to say IP address 192.168.20.1 255.255.255.0, and we could save it. By the way, notice, if you notice me doing do, right? Sorry, guys, just a little bit distracted. If you notice me doing do here, whenever I'm not in the privilege exec mode, I proceed with the command, any show command or any write command, I proceeded with a do, right? If you notice, I do WR here. I could, if I'd gone to privileged exec mode, I would just do WR, right? So it's the do is kind of saying, hey, put me back in privileged exec mode without being there so that I could do show or save or whatever it is that I need to do. So now if I go show IP interface brief here, right, it shows me that, hey, you have just created two sub interfaces. The physical interface is gigabit 00. Sub interface 1 is gigabit 0.10 and gigabit 0.20. And you notice the IP addresses that are assigned here. What if I didn't want to see all of these these interfaces here that are not configured? I'd have run the same command, show IP interface brief, and I'd say pipe exclude unassigned. So any IP address that, any interface that doesn't have an IP address assigned, I do not want to see it. So it's just a more clean way to take a look at it. And you notice there, I have these interfaces up and running. Now, how do we test this? Let's go over to PC1 and let's assign it an IP address. In future videos, by the way, I'll configure DHCP so that the PC can get an IP address automatically from the DHCP server. But in this case, for starters, we're just going to assign it statically, manually, right? So it's 192.168.20.10. Subnet mask is /24.255.255.255.0. And the default gateway on PC2 is supposed to be 192.168.20.1. Okay. And then we go over to PC1. On PC1, we're going to assign our IP addresses, which is 192.168.10.10. And the default gateway is 192.168.10.1. All right, so if all is done correctly, which I assume all is done correctly, at least, I don't realize if any mistakes that I've made, we should be able to ping from PC1 to PC2. So this is the expected behavior, right? And I'm going to try to demonstrate it to you using the simulation tool. But this is the behavior that I expect. When I ping, it's going to go like so. From PC1, it goes up to the switch. From the switch, it goes to the router. Then it will come back down, and it will go across this switch and come down and ping PC2. Right? Let's try to see if that will work, and then we'll use a simulation tool to look at it happening. Right? It will give us some form of animation so we could actually see what's going on. So if I go to PC1, and I say on PC1, hey, let's go to the command line interface, I could type ipconfig, and it shows me what my IP is. It says here your IP is 192.168.10.10, 255.255.255.0, 192.168.10.1, and I should be able to ping here my default gateway, which is 192.168.10.1. All right, it's replying. I should be able to ping the default gateway of PC2, which is 20.1, and it's replying. And I'm supposed to now be able to ping PC2, which is 10. Right? And the first one might be dropped in packet tracer because of ARP, and then eventually we'll start replying, and boom, there you go. Right? So now I am pinging. So I am pinging from PC1 to PC2, and I can also ping from PC2 to PC1 because it is replying. Now, we could use packet tracer to create a simulation. Right? How do we do that? We get the packet here, and we say, okay, we're going from PC1 to PC2. Right? So we just get the PDU here. We click on PC1, we click on PC2. It's in simulation mode, and then I do start. So again, let me just go over what I expect the behavior to be. This is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting the traffic to go here, right? It's supposed to go up here. And then let me change the color. Love this. It will come back down on the other sub interface here. It will go across over here, and then we'll come down to PC2. Let's see. All right, so let me do this. All right, so it gets to switch 1. Then from switch 1, we're expecting it to go up to the router. Then on the router, it's going to come on the blue line, come back down to switch 1. Then it's going to come across to switch 2. Then it's going to come down to PC2. All right. Right, so we could go back in real time now, guys, and we could just delete the simulation. So again, what have we done? We have configured our PC1 with an IP address, subnet mask default gateway. PC2, subnet mask, IP address default gateway. We've configured switch 1 with both VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. We needed to configure switch 1 with VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 because the traffic from VLAN 20, which is actually connected to switch 2, will need to traverse switch 1 to go to the router, right? So it had to be configured in that way. Both VLAN need to be here, even though it's just a single PC that has a VLAN assigned to it, right? We configured VLAN 20 on switch 2. We configured switch 1 with VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. We configured 2 sub-interfaces on router 1. That is one for routing for VLAN 10 and the other one routing for VLAN 20. After we have completed that config, we have actually configured the port from the switch up to the router as a trunk port. And the ports that are connecting both switches, we configured it as a trunk port. After we have completed all of that, we went through and retest, and we were successfully able to communicate from PC1 to VLAN to PC2 without issues. Right. So again, guys, if you need to watch this a few times, it's no problem. Again, as I like to tell my students, both in class and virtually, perfect practice make perfect. So this is how you're going to get really good at it, by practice, and practicing some more. All right. So please remember to like and subscribe. Please remember to share this channel with all your friends. We'll be putting a lot of videos out here. I'm a Cisco certified instructor, and I'll be going through all the labs from CCNA 1, CCNA 2, and CCNA 3, right? So just stay tuned for more and work through the labs with me. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to leave your comment on the side. Another viewer will be able to help you, or I'll come back and see those comments and help you out. All right. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye now.